pandemic really, it changed all of us and like the way that we deal with anxiety.
Like I didn't really have any social interaction, which was what I really needed.
I feel like you should check in on kids maybe.
Stress levels for kids are on the rise. We hear about that every day. It started with the COVID pandemic when many were forced to do school at home. Seeing friends became hard, but why is the anxiety not subsiding? In fact, statistics from around the country suggest it's getting worse. Welcome to Kids Speak Out, Oregon. I'm Barbara Harrison. Those young voices you just heard were not actors. They were kids expressing their legitimate concerns regarding mental health issues they face today, many as a lingering result of the isolation they experienced during COVID. According to statistics from Mental Health America, of the 52 states and territories studied, Oregon rates dead last, number 52, having the highest prevalence of youth suffering from mental health issues and the lowest rate of access to mental health care. We have a wonderful panel with us today who will be sharing their thoughts about this and their perspective on this mental health crisis. With Isaac, tell us who you are, and we welcome you. We're glad you're here.
My name is Isaac, and I'm 12 years old.
My name is Evelyn, and I'm 13 years old.
My name is Jayla, and I'm 16 years old.
My name is Agamia, and I'm 15 years old.
My name's Jesse, and I'm 18 years old.
My name is Seth, and I'm 17 years old.
My name is Montrell, and I'm 17 years old.
We're hearing the kids in your age group, some younger even and older, are going through a crisis, a mental health crisis right now. Maybe you're not on an individual level, but you probably know kids who are. What do you think is causing it? You want to start, Montrell?
Yeah, I'll start. Really being included in things. Maybe a kid who has mental health wants to be involved in things maybe and wants to know that they have somebody to talk to, and not having that can lead to like just it getting deeper and deeper and deeper. Like you want to, I feel like you should check in on kids maybe. Like me as a friend, I tell my friends within reason, you guys can always text me and I'll try to get what I can get to you.
Do you think that you have cliques? Do you have groups that you're part of? And so anybody outside your group isn't somebody that you're really concerned about?
I would say my school sort of has some like cliques, and I think that sometimes that can be like a good thing because you know you have your like group of friends that you can really count on, but then in some cases it can also be something like, oh, you know, my group of friends isn't the popular group or the cool group or whatever, and that can make you feel really like
Left out.
Yeah, and down on
Jayla,
yourself.
you have the same experience, Jayla?
I absolutely agree with that. I think that the cliques in general can make a lot of people feel left out, and then when people don't have a clique that they're involved in, they feel very lonely, and that can be not a great experience. Like, I feel like I have a group of friends who I can go to, but like really only one real friend who I can go to with anything, which kind of it's not the best because I want to be able to have more than one person I can talk to if I'm struggling, because you can't always reach the one person you need to.
Agamia, how do kids pick their friends? I mean, is it somebody that lives next door to you, who happens to go to the same school, or how do you choose friends these days?
Yeah, a lot of my friends, we've known each other for so long, but I definitely now that I am making new friends in high school, I try to find people who just make me feel good about myself. They make me feel heard, and I just know that I could tell them anything, because I think that's what makes a good friend, someone that you can always confide in.
Isaac, can you tell when somebody feels left out?
Most of the time, yeah, like body language, they might be feeling left out, and so they have bad like positions, you know, like they're not really cowering away, but they're trying to not be seen because they're worried about what other people might think. So body language, definitely.
Well, the American Psychology Association says that you guys in the age groups are really suffering. You really have problems that you're having to deal with. Would you agree with that, Seth?
Yeah, I think obviously it depends on the person, you know, but I could agree with that, especially with, you know, there's just a lot of things that people expect of us, I guess, like, you know, there's just a lot of like, you know, schoolwork, but also, you know, things that you have to do.
A lot of
outside
pressure.
School. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
I'm wondering, Is there more pressure since the pandemic on feeling good about yourself? What do you say, Jesse?
Absolutely. I would say that, like, I think a lot of kids either developed like social anxiety during the period of COVID and then after. And I think that a lot of kids needed help, especially being stuck at home, having only yourself to sit with for hours and hours. And I think days started to blend together that a lot of people didn't really feel like they were living for something. They were just kind of like going through each day. And I think like it was an issue for trying to get help during those times as well, because all these treatment facilities, inpatient, outpatient programs, wilderness programs were backed up. And especially how expensive it is to get treatment is insane. And that needs to be.
Well, social media kind of took over too during COVID, didn't it? Most of you were interacting with your friends via text messaging and I guess maybe cell phone calls.
There were a lot of different ways to communicate over the pandemic. It may look different for people in some ways. Some people are still somewhat getting together with masks on outside, having little gatherings, video games, texting, FaceTime, just finding different ways and trying to find new ways to interact with our friends each and every day.
Do you think a lot of kids did not find themselves in a group that were part of a texting group and maybe they really felt left out and didn't know how to climb into the group?
Absolutely.
Maybe being at school is different versus being on a text bubble. Like when you're at school, you're around people and you maybe become somewhat comfortable to interact with them. But when it comes to a phone and text and maybe gaming or whatever it may be, it's different.
Yeah, and I think that really shows with how people like interact. A lot of people just don't know how to act anymore because, you know, we spent so much time like, you know, secluded from everybody. So now that we come back to it, everybody's like,
I feel like
adjusting. No, you're good.
I feel like also not knowing how long we were going to be out. I feel like we can all say we went to spring break that week.
The uncertainty.
We went to spring.
We'll be back in 2 weeks.
Right. We
Turns
went to
into
spring
2
break
years.
and it turned into 2 years. And like, I think about 2 months into the spring break, they finally said, let's do online school. So now kids who are already stressed out about something, now you have online school to deal with, and you don't want to deal with it.
I think
Some
what
of
also
them
wasn't
world.
talked about is like online school and how that applies to mental health. Some people typically or don't have their brains wired in a way where they can actually learn and feel supported in an education system when it's online. And that was also not talked about. It was like, well, our hands are tied, like you have to do online. And it's just like, I think there was no other alternatives for kids who aren't the typical A-type of student that school systems make for those students.
Evelyn?
I feel like sort of, I am a very like social person, and so that like switch sort of from, you know, being able to talk to my friends every day, being able to see them, you know, even being able to talk to people who I wouldn't like text or like strike up a conversation with, just like my table mates and just kids at school. I feel like that was a really like that really hurt me sort of. Like it was really hard for me, and then especially like everybody in my grade except for me transitioned from online school to half-day in-person learning at the end of my 5th grade year, and I was the only kid who like chose to stay online, and it was really like I had to go into like a different like school online system, and that was really like it didn't.
Why did you choose to stay online?
A number of reasons. I think I really wanted to go back to in-person school, but it was like, you know, it was a family decision, and you know, my parents ultimately decided that.
Did you fight with them about it? Did you argue with them?
Yeah,
But they won.
Yeah, I mean, they had the final say, but it got really hard for me to the point where I was like, just like, like I couldn't. I'm a social person, so I would have made friends in that situation if I was in-person school, but I wasn't. I was online, and like there wasn't really a way for me to like I didn't really have any social interaction, which was what I really needed in that.
Yeah, and there was also like a certain fear of missing out, because like some people were going back to school, right? And when your parents were like, oh no, you got to stay in school, rightfully so. I mean, you know, safety, whatever, but you were also like, oh damn, everybody else is hanging out.
I know.
Isaac, what about you?
The transition was very hard, but being online, I feel like in some ways it also kind of helped with mental health because there's less bullying, you know? because they're online, so they don't really have that much time to be able to bully people. So I feel like that also helped.
I found it to be more isolating, and
Definitely.
honestly, weirdly, I mean, maybe, you know, if I lived that differently, but I feel like, honestly, I weirdly preferred the bullying, because then I would have had like actual like interaction.
Yeah.
And there's pros and cons to everything, and different types of mental health. Like mental health can be from the bullying, so that's a pro to being on online school. You're there and you're more so isolated, and now your problem has been resolved, but like I said, different types of mental health. For kids who got bullied, online school probably was really like convenient.
Like a relief.
Like what kinds of things were going on? What kind of bullying was being done online?
Well, I would speak on just like what you were talking about with online and stuff. Like, I think a lot of kids were discredited for not a typical way of living. Some kids didn't have technology to go online. Some kids didn't already struggled with attendance, so it's like they could just not open their computer for the day. And I think it was also easier for kids who have substance abuse issues to fall into addiction and go down a deeper spiral, because there wasn't as much need to be doing in-person things. You couldn't do in-person things, so there wasn't things to do other than being at home.
In my experience, I didn't really find bullying to be the issue during COVID. It was a lot more like
a lot of FOMO.
Yeah, a lot of either fear of missing out, or even when it began, I'd worked the year. I'm not really good at school. I'm gonna just. But the year before my freshman year, I worked really hard because I was doing fairly well in my classes, and I worked hard to get into like a higher level math class. And then COVID happened, and I wasn't used to online learning, and I guess it just wasn't really the way I learned. So then I ended up failing the class that I worked so hard to get into, and then that just made me feel terrible about myself, because I was like,
with kids with mental health, them feeling isolated, another positive thing that happened on online school, a lot of kids weren't really interactive with their teachers. So if you were able to kind of speak out, you now got the one-on-one. Like that kind of was helpful for me over online school. I got like a lot of one-on-one time with my teachers versus them having 24, 25 kids in a classroom that they have to attend to. We're in breakout rooms, or like just simply just in a workspace, and you can come off of mute and ask your teacher for help, and you guys go to a breakout room. You guys have like a 20, 30-minute work period. And that was very helpful. Like I said, pros and cons.
I feel like that was really like, like some kids really like thrived in that environment, and a lot of kids are still like doing online learning, but I think I was definitely not one of those people. And you know, there's two sides to the coin, and you know, some people really thrived and some people really like didn't. And
Did you think that some of your friends became depressed because they weren't seeing each other during the online school period?
Yeah, I think a lot of kids, and including myself, I went through a dark period because at the beginning of COVID, it was spring break, and you know, me and my mom, we were already gonna go to Virginia to see my sister for spring break, and so we were like, yay, an extra week. And then we got stuck in Virginia for 8 months.
Well, what was that like?
Oh my God.
It was hard.
Well, you didn't know anybody there except your sister. Wow.
That's 10 times worse.
Yeah, we were staying inside. My dad wasn't there because he wasn't traveling, so we didn't get to see him.
Well, we've got a lot more to talk about. There's a lot of us who want to know what's going on with you right now. We're going to talk about that when we come right back. We'll take a break. We'll be right back.